over here. I call this Washington County Board of Education meeting to order. After a moment of silence, would Ms. Dillinger be so kind to lead us in the pledge?
Does she know it?
She knows it.
Okay.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need a motion for consideration of the meeting agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second by Mr. Masters. We're gonna vote on here tonight.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
And voting copy.
Has everybody got their computer working? Is he working on it? So they need to do verbal, Jennifer.
No, they should have it. See, that light's really bright.
Well, them LEDs are not. We had them walls toned down a little bit.
Ms. Dillinger,
I'm sorry. Okay, I've got it, yes.
Ms. Buchanan,
I seen it. It's thinking.
okay. Yours thinking?
Yours ain't even thought about it.
What about a
How do you
verbal?
vote?
Yes.
All agree.
Okay, can we get a motion for the approval of minutes?
So moved. Second.
Approval, excuse me, of the regular meeting agenda?
No, this is minutes.
All of them.
Oh, I thought that's in the consent.
This is sort of new.
Are you approving all three, or
We're approving,
regular?
June
Call
3rd,
last.
June 22nd,
yeah.
Okay.
workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Voting is open.
All right. We'll move to that. Good? Is everybody good?
Yes.
Yes. All agree.
So now we're gonna move to announcements.
Yes, the only announcement I have is just a reminder of the July board retreat at the TSBA Law Institute on Saturday the 17th. The institute ends at I believe 12 on that day, and then we have a scheduled retreat immediately following the end of the institute on that Saturday.
If we have anything we want to put on that agenda, send it to.
Send it to me.
Today.
Yes.
So, wait, it ends at 12 or it ends earlier?
The well, probably ends a little earlier, but I was just rounding it to 12 noon, and then we'll have time for everyone to do whatever they need to do, and then we'll begin the retreat at 2.
2? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, thank you.
See you by next Friday.
Yes, if you'll just send it to me, Mrs. Moore is going on a well-deserved vacation, and I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna move to the director's report.
Right, in director's reports, we've done this all meetings since I've been here. This is just information for board awareness and for public record. If there are questions, of course, at this time, I certainly will do my best to answer them, but if not, no action is needed. No questions, then I guess you move to the next item.
Good, okay. So before we approve the consent agenda, is there anything any board member wants to pull out of it? And then we'll approve it after. If everybody's good with it, we'll move on.
They do.
Nobody?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, nice.
Second.
Second.
I was just giving you an opportunity to think about it there, Mr. Chairman.
Right, I figured. Well, okay.
Voting's open.
Vote. Oh, you pulled a new one on us today.
Full of surprises, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Has everybody voted?
Mr. Riddle.
Mr. Riddle.
Oh, there you go.
Good?
All agreed.
Okay, we're gonna move to policy.
The only policy is just a deletion of policy 4.708. We amended another policy, so with that, it was incorporated in the policy you just already approved. This is just a formal deletion of this policy.
And we'll need a, do we need a motion to handle that?
So moved. Second.
Okay? And this is a final, done with it.
It should be first and final reading,
Okay.
because it's a deletion.
Okay. All right, Jennifer?
Voting's open. All approved.
Good? Okay, next is discussion presentations, TCAT agreement.
Yes. So, if you would, the sections, tried to put, kind of working with Mr. Day to organize the agenda. This item, these items are action items, but they're just, items to be discussed that should not have been and weren't put in the consent agenda. They were already put under the section of discussion. So, not everything is a presentation, but everything in here is a discussion item, and would move to approval if somebody makes a motion or consider approval.
At our workshop, Mr. Bennett was looking into the legal ramifications of the agreement with them. Is everything good on that end?
Well, we were back and forth as late as 3:30 today.
Okay.
In what I was pull up his last email. With Mr. Bennett. There it is. So as, the intent in the agreement as it exists, there's still some things that I believe and he believes we should make some language adjustments. But what he recommended, if the board was in a position to approve for us to move forward, is just to ask the board to consider approval to approve the concept or the idea of moving forward with this agreement, subject to any revisions that he makes to protect the board's interest, to finalize the final written agreement.
Mr. Flame?
Make a motion, we approve the concept of moving forward with the TCAT agreement and let Mr. Bennett and Mr. Day and Mr. Boyd work out those final details, but let's protect the board at all costs in the school system.
And then they need a second?
Second.
Ms. Riddle?
Just a question for consideration, this may be in here, but as far as ownership or title of the property, does that still remain throughout the lease with the school
The
board?
board maintains ownership. It's just like any lease agreement. Based on that agreement, the leasee, I guess, gets whatever rights are in the agreement. In this case, if you read where it exists, that's where some of the questions are, that they have exclusive rights to modify it, which I don't think that's a great concern, but if the board wants to go in and also make some modifications while it's under lease, I think that's something we need to have language in the final agreement to include.
Can we possibly have language in there, it may be a little iffy on the use of it. I don't know that they'll need the entire acreage there, and we'd like to maintain some ability to do something there if we so choose later.
Yes, sir.
We can include something of that nature.
I think that's somewhat of the discussion back and forth with Mr. Bennett in protecting the board's best interest. Certainly, the concept is, I recommend it 100%, but I want the board to be able to also, if there's decisions made about a portion of the property that may also benefit Washington County Schools, we want the board to be in a position to make that decision while it is under the lease agreement.
Okay. Do you see, what kind of time frame do you see this taking to move forward with this?
Honestly, from what I understand, there's been years of work already behind this. So as far as a formal agreement, I know it would be reasonable to say before the next board meeting. As far as executing, getting to the point we fully execute this agreement. And then they have, then that point, then they can take take steps forward to begin whatever they need to do with the building, facility, and planning for the programs.
So the state didn't give us a date, or they just kind of, or did they?
That's what we want to make sure we work out.
Okay, so.
But, you know,
okay.
the information that I've gotten is we need to act quickly as far as from information from the state.
Okay.
You know, as far as funding goes, we don't want to lose the opportunity to
Right.
access funding that is available.
Thank you.
So did I hear you say, I mean, I thought that you and Mr. Day and Mr. Bennett were gonna get together, finalize it, sign it, and send it on, but then I heard, is
Well,
it coming back here, or I'm kind of?
Well, that would be, yes, sir. Yeah, you authorize with the guidance from Mr. Bennett, the final product, and of course, Mr. Day would be the representative of the board to final approval to move forward. Yes.
Do you have something? He's trying to pull that up right now. I had the same concern Whitney did, and I asked if he could put that up there and get it. I'd love to preserve some of that property as well, but me and Mr. Boyd pulled it up the other day. Man, that thing sits smack dab in the middle of
It's
it.
a little bit to the left, up and left.
It's just not.
More.
So there's not that much road frontage?
Well, you can see it right here in a minute.
Keep
It's
going, let's stay right.
it's
Bam, right there.
right there. It is.
See the saucer?
Yeah.
The dome.
And see, the apartments are on the right.
See.
I mean, heck, it takes up the whole thing. Because I thought the same thing. I thought maybe 10 acres was beside it, or 10 acres were somewhere else, but I mean, it's 20 acres, but I mean, that thing's smack dab in the middle of it.
You've got a
So,
lot on the road frontage there you could utilize for something possibly, another building or two right there.
I guess my thought was, and I didn't say this, but if you want to do that, I feel like we need to survey it out and separate it, if we have that ability to
Would
be.
they put a fence there, around there? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I'm
probably
sure they
wouldn't,
need-
would they?
Well, I don't think they need to have the opportunity to go out here and build on that property unless they get the okay from us.
Well,
Yeah,
I
if-
think we're giving them full rights to.
Yes.
Like
To
they
the
can tear
building.
that. They can tear that down. if
Well,
they
they said
want
they
to.
need
Well,
an
that's
outside
fine.
for.
That-
But where that building sits, if they want to remodel or whatever. But all the other property is still Washington County school systems. And, you know, if they come and they say they want to build another building and have a bigger shop or something, then we give them the okay to it to let them do it.
Is it?
My understanding is the reason this was such a great opportunity was because they were going to be using heavy equipment and they would need that space to dig and
And they may.
fix.
Probably that treat area could potentially, and not having to walk through that treat area. Where they
Pretty
could.
steep.
Okay.
Is it?
But,
Yeah.
you know, that was my understanding is, you know, with bulldozers and backhoes and all those types of things, that they would be tearing it up and fixing it back.
That's been discussed as far as the heavy equipment operation
Right.
program. That could be a component of it, but what has been determined, at least what's been stated, is the round portion of the facility is likely not usable. And the rectangular portion is, but if they did build a new facility, it would basically be to raise that round portion and put it there. And then the other portions would be for, like you just pointed out, the heavy equipment operation.
So why are we talking about not letting them use a portion of it?
Well, I think what we're thinking is, for one, we may want to use it. If you just hand them the deed to that whole piece, they may keep it for eternity.
Okay, then can I have an example of what you might want to use it for? Because, I mean, I'm just,
You
We
might
may
want to build a
want
high
to-
school building on the front of it, that they can both use the campus. I mean, like maybe what we've talked about before, a CTE for just our high school kids.
Just to keep our options open.
Yeah, and I mean, we may just set it up to where they can use it.
Right.
They may use it for eternity, but if we wanted to build our own building there and work a deal with them, then we got the property.
right, I just don't want to mess the deal up
No, we don't want to do that.
over that, because this is a great opportunity for every kid in Washington County.
Mhm.
How many acres is it total?
I think it's 20, isn't it?
That's what I saw
Right.
from the land information. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to mess the deal up, but I'm like Whitney, I just want to leave our options open to where if 10 years from now, another board's sitting here and they want to go out there and put up a building and work with them, they've got that opportunity, and they may never do it, but if you sign every bit of that over to them, you don't have any say-so, really.
The possible language that would address that, as compared to what you have as the original agreement, Mr. Blevins proposed this, just because as I spoke with him and talked about the flexibility the board would want. He just said, what he added as a sample language, certainly I don't think the final language, it just says Washington County Board of Education will be granted access to the property for the mutual benefit of Washington County residents related to education and workforce development activities that may include future facility construction upon agreement. And then he lists by all of the partners, the TCAT, the Board of Regents, who's also involved in funding, some of the funding aspects. And that aligns with workforce development and the mission of Washington County.
That's all I want, is just some flexibility for us. And like he said, it may never happen, but you still want the option.
Now, what he just read, does that say if you want to go out there and do something, you got to get it approved by all those parties?
What that says, but like I said, I don't think that's the final language, and I think that's something Mr. Bennett certainly can help with.
Yeah.
The idea, I think, is close to what we're discussing here, but the idea also, the owner of the property having to go to the TCAT and the TBR to ask permission. I think it's more about, we want to come to an agreement about, yeah, it's going to be complementary to what's happening on that campus as it's developed.
Yeah. So, we probably need to finalize what we're thinking so we can get back to them and get this done. So does anybody got any thoughts on that, or is that a bad idea, or?
No, I think you got a motion, let's vote on it.
Restate the motion.
Flexibility
Yeah.
that we approve the concept of TCAT
For
and
you
that
all
we
to
enter in
discuss.
agreement to protect the board and let Mr. Day, Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Bennett be a part of that discussion.
And then
Or
we'll bring it back.
finalize it.
We'll bring it back for a final vote.
Well,
I don't think.
I think time is of the essence, the way I understood it from his workshop. We just.
They're trying to
You
get money
three-
to build the new building.
Okay, so you want us to take care of
You
it?
three have got the,
You know, executive.
yeah,
But I
Okay.
don't want to give them no access, no more land than what they absolutely have to.
And I'm sure they'll have a
We
concept
control
of what
the
they
rest
want.
of it.
Yeah, okay. Let's vote.
Voting open.
Tell me when we're next, Jim.
All agreed.
Okay, next on the agenda is consider approval proposal for energy-related services. Includes both engineering services and equipment by Excel Energy Group for the design, installation of LED lighting to reduce energy costs for Washington County school facilities as submitted.
I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
I second.
Mr. Fleener,
no
no question?
beat me to the punch.
Okay. Anybody?
Discussion, are you asking
Yeah.
for discussion? Brad, have you looked at any of the numbers and what they're saying?
I've not been asked to do so yet.
I did not ask, I analyzed the projects of the similar school size, and as far as the cost that we're facing, I mean, that analysis, looking at what the school systems that had done the upgrades, you know, we're right in line with what their costs have been.
Yeah, that was one of my questions.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you know, I know it's gonna pay itself back
Yes, sir.
relatively quickly, it's just how quick will it? And as long as those, and you've experienced with them before, so as long as you can tell us that their cost, per unit cost for the scope is comparable to what they've done with that whole list of other folks that
Yes,
they've
sir.
done work for, I'm good with it.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of the per unit cost is a little bit, it's not consistent because when they go into a building, there may be other costs involved. So when you say, what they show is the number of facilities, the number of fixtures, but the cost is very consistent as far as comparable sized districts. And then, as I mentioned, the process we will go through is through the state of Tennessee, the Energy Efficient Schools Initiative. They have a panel or a review team that looks at all of the proposals before they would approve any kind of that low interest loan
Okay.
for schools to pay for this work. They go through and they look at the cost, they look at the scope of work, and they look at, I guess, the industry standards. And then if they don't see that it meets those, then they do not approve the loan.
Okay. All right, so if the cost were 4 times what it should be,
Yes.
you'll get some pushback.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
What did we decide on Jonesboro and Midway?
Well, what I've been told, and we were told by Mr. Kroom, the CEO, and Mr. Gregory's here representing the company, we can pull that out later if we decide that, and the answer is you haven't decided yet. We can pull those buildings out later if the board chooses to before the work begins. If you decide you don't want to include the upgrades for those 2 buildings.
Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of off the subject, but it's not. You know, Chuck told us in the meeting with them, Jonesboro, that they're gonna have individual rooms will have its own heating and cooling source. How efficient is that? Does anybody know? I mean,
They're pretty efficient. It's like a mini split system. You see a lot of those, they're very popular now.
What everybody's going to.
They're pretty,
well, I don't know.
Well, personal setting too. I mean,
they're
it's,
very efficient, but they're really picky on your setup. You gotta have a really good installer. That's a big deal on those. But they're very efficient.
Do we know if our lights and all this will be LEDs at
They should.
Jonesboro is.
at Jonesboro?
Yeah, they're.
I don't even think anybody could see anything that's on.
I mean, Ridgeview or Boone's Creek's.
Bridge Creek's not. Bridge Creek is LEDs.
Oh, it is?
Yes, sir.
Ridgeview and Grandview's not.
That was before its time, I guess.
Okay. All right, that's just what I was wondering.
Should we make an amendment to that motion that it would be budget neutral going forward, or will those numbers come back to us and then we'll have another opportunity to, like I said, take the schools out that we deem?
Yeah, well, in the proposal, it is budget neutral, and there's also a guaranteed savings that pays the loan amount that is even, below the certain, so we will have surplus savings each year, so.
Yeah, I just wondered if it needed to be in the motion, that's what
If the board should, feels like it should be, that's
of
certainly.
course, it's gonna come back to pull those individual schools out, so maybe it's not
Yeah.
necessary.
Are we going with the 5 or the 7-year plan on that? I know
I would recommend 5.
the 5, just a payback and no extra savings, it's just payback. Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, one other thing, Mr. Boyd, since we are using EESI, or the lending source.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming the county commission would have to agree to that debt or not.
Yes, that would be, we would, if the board approves tonight, then we would have to make application to ESI, and then they would work up approving, assuming it goes through the review process and it's a project they will fund. And then after they develop that loan agreement, it goes to the county commission because it is issuing debt. The board can't issue debt,
Right.
so it has
So
to
there
go
are,
through the commission.
there are steps the board could take here, even subsequently.
Yes, sir.
Once we push this thing out of the gate,
Yes,
if
sir.
there was something that somebody would do.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask one, and I hate to even ask this, but I'm gonna ask it. So, in their program, do they take, so like this room right here, I think I counted 14 lights. With LEDs, it probably didn't take 14 lights. So if it only took 10 lights, would they put in 10 lights and then would they fix the stuff back that they took out?
Yes, we asked.
He said it'd be
Yes,
brand new.
okay.
Yes, sir.
I
And
missed
it's
the
gonna be a
part.
certain light,
Lumens or
Yeah.
whatever.
lumens.
Kilowatt.
Yeah, we asked him that
Okay,
question in the
good.
workshop, and
And some of those at the beach.
he didn't say,
I
I'll reduce it by a third, but he did say
Yeah.
they'd make sure that the lumens were where they needed to be by the changing
I
the
just didn't want a
wattage.
change order to fix all the places in the ceiling when they didn't need as many lights or something, or didn't put lights extra just because we didn't want to. So you covered it. I knew I could leave and everything would be good.
And again, the Energy Efficient School Initiative group, they also will evaluate the work in addition to. So, they review the proposal, they approve and the loan, and then when the work is done, they basically measure, check the measurements that sets the baseline that the company will provide.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Gregory? I'm
Just
sorry.
real quick, while we would be here doing the installation, you may have a teacher that says, oh my goodness, that's too bright. We can address that, you know, while we're there. Sometimes we'll hear that, sometimes we don't, but if they do, we can address it while we're here.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Well, let's vote.
Open.
Too much talk. Don't let vote.
Jennifer, mine went to sleep, but I'm yes.
How do you vote?
Yeah,
Thank
oh,
you.
there it is, okay.
All approve.
Okay, we're going to new business, and we don't have Regina France, but we have someone else.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yeah. It is the season of vacations, right?
That's right.
So they're digging to the bottom of the bucket, and here I am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Director Boyd. I'm Danielle Mitchell, and I'm part of the leadership team for the Washington County Education Association. It's really hard to believe that by the time someone is standing in this spot at the next board meeting, we'll be off and rolling on a brand new school year. So, and we have just completed one of the most challenging school years in recent history. So in this very short respite between those, on behalf of the teachers of Washington County, I would like to express my gratitude to this board. I'd like to thank you specifically for your strong showing last week at the County Commission as they were discussing budget options. Thank you for speaking with commissioners and making it a priority in your time to attend those meetings and protect education funding that is so important to the teachers and students of Washington County. It speaks volumes and is very telling of the priorities that you have, and we appreciate your time and your efforts. Please know that there are always teachers in the background supporting those efforts, emails, phone calls. I have a county commissioner now who knows my name and will return my calls. So that's wonderful. But thank you for your time and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
attending as well.
Thank you.
That's it. 20, 23, 20, 27 minutes.
Motion to
Go
adjourn.
over the schedule, please.
Yeah.
You gonna go to schedule, Jennifer? We don't have it up here.
You need to go to Florida more often.
Did you make that
I'll make it
list
happen.
for us for the coming year, all of the meetings?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Did I not see it?
It's in my calendar.
Consent agenda, what?
Yeah.
I didn't
Yes.
see
It's
it.
in the
Yes,
consent
ma'am.
agenda.
Okay, thank you.
When is our next meeting?
But
August
so
something.
That'll be next, won't it?
Thursday.
So, yeah.
The next meeting is,
Our workshop is,
August, yeah.
Yeah, we can go over that at board retreat, can we?
yeah.
Okay. We want a motion to adjourn?
I had a question, sir, if you'd allow it.
Make it quick.
That last month, we had a policy that Ms. Buchanan questioned some of the language on there. Did it get cleaned up on that?
I know Ashley's,
Okay.
Dr. Keith is working on all of
Okay.
those.
It
And
wasn't-
many, many more. She's still, all the legislative updates came in, she's working through all of those.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Are we all in favor? This is a new one.
I'm against it.
Oh,
Dude, we get done.
Is the majority in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey, is Ashley
29
going with
minutes?
us to summer?
29?
29 minutes.
No,
Very
ma'am.
good.
She's not.
No, ma'am.